From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From offseason to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. It's time for the reaction show. This ought to be an interesting reaction. 49ers did not get it done today against Arizona.
What?
They definitely did not execute when they had to execute and lost a game they should have won.
Yeah.
I mean, really, coming into this game, no Kyler Murray, no DeAndre Hopkins. They should have won. They should have taken care of business.
No A.J. Green, no J.J. Watt. Justin Pugh goes down in the first half. You're rolling with a backup right guard. No excuses. None. You come out of this with a win. You have to come out of this game with a win.
When did Mike McGlinchey actually get hurt?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's an interesting development that happened, right? Mike McGlinchey goes down, Tom Compton goes in, and immediately shows why Tom Compton maybe shouldn't.
Interested to why it wasn't Jalen Moore.
Yeah, I want to know what the reasoning behind that.
I mean, is it just they've been practicing? Because I thought he's a swing tackle. I figured he would be ready to play right or left tackle unless he's just been predominantly practicing with the left, at the left spot.
I wonder if that's what it is. It's an interesting decision, that's for sure. But I mean, let's be real here, right? If we're being real here, both you and I on this, and what just happened with this football game, you put yourself in a very, very big hole really early on in the football game for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
You said the audio's low?
Oh, the audio is low.
Matt said audio's low.
Matt says audio is low. Matt might be on your end because I'm fine over here. I'm registering fine. Ant, go ahead.
Yeah. Ant here. Check.
Everything seems fine, Matt. So I don't know if that's something on your end. Maybe you need to reload. It's registering over here just fine. So I'll double check it.
Yeah, everyone else can chime in as well.
Yeah, if the audio is low.
Tell us how we sound.
Yeah, everyone else let us know. If it's low, let us know. I'll try and reconnect some things.
Okay, Shooter said it sounds good.
Okay.
David said it sounds okay.
I don't know, Matt. I don't know. That might be
Jail said sounds good. Okay.
All right, so Jimmy will be the one to bear the brunt of mainstream media's narrative, Frank, potentially. I thought Jimmy played pretty well other than late in that football game, the throw at the end, and even then, he's just trying to make a play.
This isn't a Jimmy Garoppolo problem.
Nope.
Jimmy Garoppolo continued the same success that he had against the Chicago Bears. He built upon that. 2 straight 300-yard games. I think that he's not the issue. In this one, there was some really bad turnovers. George Kittle trying to make a play. You understand he's out there his first game back. He's trying to make something happen. Hurls a guy, but lets the ball get away from his body. We know Coach Collins would have went crazy for that, Alex. Ball gets away from his body, and he gets knocked out. And the Cardinals did a good job of swinging for the fences on those.
Yep.
And you know what's crazy is...
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, he got that one down. And then, and then you had the other opportunities, too, where with Brandon Ayuk, where Ayuk doesn't get touched, gets up. I mean, he's pretty aware, right, that he doesn't get touched. He's trying to make something else happen, get extra yards, trying to make a play, and it gets knocked out from behind, and it's another fumble, and it's another turnover. And those were backbreakers because both of them were going to be in plus territory. Brandon Ayuk was going to be inside the 10 with an opportunity, to really cut this game even closer. So, yeah, this game could have changed big time if they don't turn those balls over, but they did. And it's unfortunate, and, they paid the price. You got to win the turnover battle, and they definitely didn't come close to winning the turnover battle today.
No. Coach Evan B., what a game. Much love, y'all. Much love to you too, man. You were trying to give us hope on Twitter. I didn't appreciate you trying to give us hope with the way we were playing, but I do understand what your point was because, it looked like we had a chance there late to try and get some momentum going. You get a couple stops and get some things rolling your way. But it's just hard, man. You can't make those kind of mistakes. You can't do that to yourself. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. And that's been a common theme all season with this team. Wrong time, wrong situation, whether it's Josh Norman getting unsportsmanlike calls.
Oh, God.
I'm still trying to figure out what the heck happened there because it looks like they threw the flag on Kingsbury first.
They did.
And then they threw the flag on Josh Norman.
They did.
They ruled Josh Norman's an unsportsmanlike that happened after the play, and Cliff Kingsbury's is in between downs.
I'm confused.
Doesn't make sense because Kingsbury's came first.
I know. I didn't really care for the clarification as well. It didn't make sense to me.
No.
To me, it should have been offsetting penalties.
Yep.
And because it was post-play, it should have been, fourth down. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me. To this day, it doesn't make sense. However, right, the same result, it's probably going to be a field goal.
It ends up being 3 points.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, right? Either way, it ends up being 3 points. The only way that changes is if that fumble that happens a couple plays after that ends up staying in Fred Warner's hands and we get off the field and no points allowed and given up. But again, if you're the 49ers, it's stuff like that. I mean, that got Josh Norman benched. I got him sat for the rest of the game.
Got Josh Norman benched.
It's also well, but that's what I meant. I meant was right is Josh Norman doing that and acting the way he had got Josh Norman benched.
Josh Norman getting in it with Tavon Wilson got Josh Norman benched.
Also that too.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? As a veteran player in this league, you hurt your team with a penalty, and then you're gonna go not listen to one of the other veterans.
Well, a guy
who's the field.
Guy who's been in San Francisco longer than you. He's been here since the start of this thing, and a guy that was over the offseason or during training camp when guys were out. Ward, Tart were dealing with stuff. Tavon Wilson was the guy starting back there in space next to Jimmy Ward.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't do that. Norman knows better than that. He let his emotional drive get ahead of him, and it cost the 49ers. And you can't cost cost your team yards and opportunities. It wasn't a good look for him. So yeah, Norman got benched, and you know what? And I'm glad that Kyle Shanahan benched him. Overall, I didn't think that we got better production from the guy that went in for him.
Absolutely not.
But we weren't going to get better production anyways, because guess what, Alex? It seemed like they rolled over Chicago's game plan. And I told you guys on Face-Off, it wasn't a winning thing. And they let Colt McCoy pick them apart because they gave them what they wanted.
Let him throw underneath.
Complete it. It's a terrible game plan. If you are focused on not giving up those big plays down the field, and you're going to get eaten up underneath, these teams are going to pick you apart.
Well, this is what we said, right? You and I both said that if this was a going forward sort of thing, that this was a problem. I was working under the impression that this was a Justin Fields game plan, that you could roll with this for one game and survive, but that, Colt McCoy is a very serviceable, well-known, highly successful backup quarterback in the NFL and has found a way to win football games and have success with teams in the NFL. It doesn't matter if it's with the Giants last year, whether it was in San Francisco, whether it's with Arizona now, Washington football team, I think, at one point in time. I mean, he's been all over the place. He's been with a lot of teams. You can't just go out there and let a guy who's been in the league for a long time and is a professional. He's a pro. He knows how to prepare. He knows what he needs to do. And right in the telecast, how many times did Mark Sanchez bring it up? All week long, he kept talking about he doesn't want to do anything to change the offense, take them out of rhythm, do things they don't want to do. He wants things to stay as consistent as the same as possible.
Let's not talk about Mark Sanchez.
Can Mark Sanchez never call another 49ers game ever again?
There was literally a pass that went right off of George Kittle's hands, and he was like, that's too high. And I was like, wait, say what? It's literally within reach. Like, then you never threw an accurate pass in your life, Mark Sanchez,
That's
because I
also
watched your football get away from you consistently.
The butt fumble. You shouldn't be calling games. But I want 49ers to start a petition, because every game that Mark Sanchez has called for San Francisco has been a loss. I don't think the 49ers have won a game with Mark Sanchez calling a football game.
I don't think anyone wins a game with Mark Sanchez calls the game.
It's not the curse of Candlestick. It's the curse of Sanchez.
I know. I lost the first time I heard him speak today. I was hurting. I mean, he's terrible.
Yeah, it's not.
He says weird stuff, man.
It's not good. Colt McCoy, one of the better backups in the league.
100% agree with that, Matt.
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
one heck of a college kid.
Yeah, that was one. He was one guy that we had respect for as a backup quarterback. We kind of knew it wasn't going to be an easy one, and he took advantage of what they were giving him. And that's the thing. When you're getting matchups like motioning James Conner out in the fourth quarter, they motioned him out, and he was matched up with Azeez Al-Shaair. And I literally started going, oh, there's a mismatch. And then not only was it a mismatch, but then they blitzed Al-Shaair off the edge. Well, you already saw the mismatch. Now you blitz him off the edge, and now Tavon Wilson from 12 yards deep is supposed to cover him on 3rd and 4? Huh?
Interesting.
It's interesting. But you could tell, too, they did miss Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt.
100%.
Talanoa Hufanga struggled a little bit today, especially in coverage. Tavon Wilson had moments. The halfback pass or the reverse pass, he was in the wrong spot. So you've seen them, taking advantage of a little bit on the back end. That was big. And then I thought, too, that Arizona did a really good job, their running backs, of getting the extra yards after contact.
James Conner thrived in that all day, and the other guy, Benjamin. Had a wonderful job.
It seemed like every time it was like, oh, we're going to get him stuff for 1 or 2, and then boom, 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 3, 4.
Benjamin at one point carried Kevin Givens an additional 3 yards on what was after a big first down stop or a big first down. He held him to a yard or 2, and it was 2nd and 9, and then he carried Givens for like 5 yards and put him in third and 3 or something. I'm just like, you had him at the line of scrimmage. This can't keep happening. The coach Evan B says, on the real, though, Mark Sanchez was loving on y'all all day. He was. Frank says, the game was so critical for the 49ers. There was something missing in the locker room. Frank said that a little bit earlier. I don't know if there's something missing in the locker room, but mentality-wise, mindset-wise right now, we're not all there. We keep shooting ourselves in the foot every week.
Trying to do too much.
And guys trying, that's what it feels like. Guys are trying to make the big play.
Think about the situations. Kittle's hurdles someone, leaves
the ball out.
No, Brandon Ayuk gets up trying to make a touchdown.
Well, makes an incredible catch. You already did enough. You already did enough, guys.
No, I know, but I mean, everyone's a competitor, right?
Correct.
I'm getting up in that situation and trying to run. I have no problems with Brandon doing it, and he gets hit from behind. It's just unfortunate that it happens a couple of times in this game. You have to secure the ball. But ultimately, I'm not mad at them for trying, especially Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. They're trying to get out there and make plays for their football team. And I thought Brandon Ayuk had a very good game. Besides that fumble, Brandon Ayuk played fantastic. George Kittle did look, he made a difference in the offense, right? Yep. The offense looked more dynamic. Elijah Mitchell at his moment, Elijah Mitchell catching the ball out of the backfield was huge.
Absolutely.
He looked good doing that.
First time all year we've gotten to really see a good chunk of that.
Yeah.
Which I like to see. I like the expansion of his role within the offense. That's awesome.
No Jeff Wilson Jr.
No, not a single ounce of Jeff Wilson Jr. was shocked me a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
It shocked me.
Like, why do you activate him if you're not going to
put him on the field at all?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But we got to figure out the right tackle spot.
Well, I'm wondering too, right? If the Jeff Wilson thing is just because of how the game started to get out of hand. Kyle's sitting there going, "Yeah, you know what? Let's just let him rest. Let's see if this group can get it done and get us back in there." Can we run the hurry up all game long? You guys cut Connor at the worst time. He had a career game at the perfect time. That's an inspired player on an inspired team. So it's missing from the 49ers bench and maybe it's from the team as a whole. I don't know if it's missing because I feel like guys are making incredible plays. I mean, they're making great plays. Kittle had a bunch of great catches on the sideline in the end zone. The adjustment with him and Jimmy G. Jimmy G, the last 2 weeks, has played some of the best football we've seen him play since he first got to San Francisco. And Brandon Ayuk has elevated. Deebo Samuel's been playing lights out all season long.
Yeah.
Nick Bosa has been a force, a dominant force on the front.
Armstead, too.
Armstead has been playing great. DJ Jones is having a phenomenal year. There's tons of guys doing lots of incredible things in San Francisco. It's just not 11 guys. And it's always one or two guys right now that's trying to do a little bit too much at the wrong time, and it bites us. It bites us in the butt.
Yeah. I thought overall, the offense was moving the football, but they couldn't get it done. And it was usually turnovers that caused it.
Chauncey, Trey Sermon wasn't active. So Trey Sermon having 0 carries, he wasn't active.
Trey Sermon's not going to be active.
No, he's going to be inactive for the rest of the season.
Trey Sermon's not good enough to play for the 49ers this year.
No.
And that's just the way it is. And I don't care when he was drafted. I mean, think about this. You drafted George Kittle in the 5th round. You start someone you drafted ahead of him just because you drafted him ahead of him? Well, he was a 2nd-round pick. He's got to play.
He's got to play.
It doesn't make no sense. No, it doesn't make
Mark,
sense.
This team isn't good enough to make up for mistakes, turnovers. Not many teams are, but
not against a team like Arizona that's really good. If you're playing a lesser team, you can, you're playing the Jaguars, you could come back from a couple of turnovers. You're playing Arizona, that's a tall order. You know what's crazy though in this game is I felt there at times it was like, here we go. Like you
constantly felt like we were about to jump start.
Yeah, like we were about to come. Like, oh, we need one stop, and we couldn't get off the field. And it's the dang third down defense. Ever since they got worried about defensive pass interference, yeah, you stopped the defensive pass interference. But now you can't stop any quarterbacks.
Correct.
It's like I told you, give me defensive pass interference. Give it to me.
Guys.
I'd rather have that than them picking us apart because then they also win the time of possession. I don't really care for it. I like aggressiveness.
Yeah, love Armstead, but the 4th and 1, Armstead goes for the ball instead of the QB, killed me.
Which play was that?
I'm not remembering which one.
I honestly don't remember it because I remember the Alshire, where Colt McCoy kind of falls forward on the. I thought Alshire had him stopped.
I thought he had him stopped.
Yeah, maybe that's the same one he's talking about. Because Armstead is right there.
Maybe,
but I don't remember seeing what Armstead did in that situation.
Megan, that penalty on Armstead was a trash call.
100%. Yeah.
Welcome to the new NFL. Though.
Yeah.
This is what it is. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they're going to protect the quarterbacks at an all-time high, unless you're Jimmy Garoppolo sliding against the Bears. They get absolutely mollywopped.
Yeah, or you're Jermichael Hasty across the middle at the end of the game. I think
what I don't like about the Armstead penalty too is how long it took for them to call it. Right? And it's like they're complaining. All of a sudden, there's a flag.
If you're an official and you're not throwing that flag out within a second or two of it happening,
there's no conviction.
Swallow your flag.
Yeah,
you throwing it out there after the fact is just trash. It's awful. Steven, we need corners bad. Here's the problem though. There's no.
Who said that?
Steven.
We need corners bad.
Steven Mandier.
Part of it, Steven, is what DeMeco Ryans has done the last 2 weeks scheme wise. He's playing off. They're afraid to get a defensive pass interference, so they're playing cover 3 and they're playing everyone deep. When they went man, it was few and far between. They went cover 1. So I mean, yeah, I would love to have different corners. There were just no options, right? Once we got past the draft, we were already past free agency. The trade deadline, there was no options at corner. If you go Cameron Dantzler, there's no guarantee he's better than the guys you got.
I mean, anyone that still wants Cameron Dantzler, just watch Minnesota games.
Yeah.
The last few weeks, he's had to play in Minnesota secondary.
And Chauncey, yes, for the role that they're asking JaMychal Hasty to play, he is better than Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon cannot catch the football. Trey Sermon has not shown that he's great in pass blocking sets, and he's not great at finding the hole and explosive.
And JaMychal Hasty's playing third downs when you're supposed to be a pass receiver, be able to motion out. That's not what Sermon does. You have to compare Sermon to Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell, not to JaMychal Hasty. It's a different piece of the offense, 100%.
Correct. Saying, where did Josh Norman go? To the bench to go sit because you cannot get on. I mean, you can't. He gets a unnecessary or unsportsmanlike conduct call because he's taunting. Starts getting into it with Tavon Wilson on the field. Tavon Wilson basically tells him, "Hey, you just go sit."
Yeah, you're going off.
And he hits him away and gets in his face, and that's the final straw for Shanahan.
I seen Kyle yell at him, Josh, and then he came over and he talked to him, and he sent him to the bench, and he was never to be seen again for the rest of the game.
Is this a one-game thing, and or is this a linger?
Josh is a veteran. It'll either be a one-game thing or he'll be gone.
One of the two.
There's no way he's going to sit on the bench. So they're going to have a conversation, and he's either going to be the starting corner next week or he's going to be off this roster. I don't think there's any in between.
True. Chauncey, Eric Stokes is an elite corner.
Who is?
Eric Stokes, apparently, the rookie from Green Bay.
DeAndre Hopkins would say otherwise after last week.
DeAndre Hopkins with a bum hamstring torched him last week.
But I think Eric Stokes has ability, but I don't think he's elite.
Tons of ability.
He's not elite yet, but he's got traits and characteristics to be.
Potentiality.
100%. But what does that have to do with anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
Have we got to come to the realization that the defense just isn't very good, or Ryans might not be the guy right now? Replace him with Fangio.
No. If you want to fundamentally change your defense completely, you have Nick Bosa, who is built to play in the base 4-3. Now you're going to go to Vic Fangio, who runs a 3-4. Nick Bosa can't play outside linebacker. Nick Bosa can't play 5 technique in the 3-4. You're not changing to a 3-4. Your best defensive players don't fit in that scheme. You're staying in the 4-3, so it makes no sense. DeMeco Ryans, we've watched the film. There's been weeks DeMeco Ryans absolutely out-schemed the other team. The first time they played the Cardinals, they played Seattle. The schemes were fantastic. This is not a DeMeco Ryans problem consistently. It's a DeMeco Ryans right now problem. They have overcorrected with those DBs.
Correct.
100%. You guys thought it was going to be 1 week.
I thought it was.
I had a gut feeling that this is the way we were going. They got away with it, and they thought they could get away with it again against Colt McCoy. And they couldn't. And it got to him. And you know what, though? DeMeco is a smart guy, and he's a good defensive coordinator. But we're 8 games in the year, guys. I mean, you don't move off of a defensive coordinator after 8 games. Let this guy have a season, probably 2 seasons, before you really judge him as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm not really ready to throw DeMeco Ryans under the bus. Up until the last few games, it's been pretty solid from him in terms of the games that he's called and the positions he's put this defense in. The last few weeks have been concerning. Last week was a concern only if this was the plan going forward, and I wasn't ready to jump on that train. And I know you had that gut feeling. My gut feeling was just the opposite of this, which was I think he knows, I think Kyle, I think that everyone knows, right? Rookie quarterback, you might be able to get away with this 1 game, but you're not going to be able to do it again. And maybe them thinking that they weren't going to have Kyler Murray, they decided to roll the dice again. And guess what? When you roll the dice and take chances, you're gambling. You're taking a risk. And Colt McCoy made you pay for the risk today. He definitely did.
Yeah, and I see we're getting a lot of comments. I seen Matt say Norman event in the frustration of the team's underperformance, surfacing poor mental strength. I think at that moment of the game, I think he was like hyped up and going at Cliff Kingsbury because the game was still relatively close.
Correct.
And I don't think the team was falling apart. I mean, I really don't. I never got that sense there. I never got the uninspired feel. I got a team that felt like they were down and it was going to be tough to come back, but I never got the uninspired feel until late in the game when it felt like, of course, it's over, right? That's when Jim throws the pick. They know they're going to methodically move it down, and all it's going to count on is an onside kick.
Yep.
And Jimmy didn't see Buda Baker, hanging out in the middle of the field.
Well, I mean, Jimmy's thinking too, right? Why would Buda be here? Buda's going to be sitting deep half, deep third. He's not going to let the big shot.
He got fooled by the pre-snap read, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, because Mark Sanchez too. Terrible analysis. Oh, he thought he looked him off enough. No,
he never looked him off at all.
Never even looked. He was looking right the whole way.
He actually had Mohamed Sanu open, but he planned on going to Debo the whole time.
He had Mohamed Sanu open, and I think also Jimmy expected Debo to sit a little bit because he does throw that a little bit behind where Debo was.
Right.
It's just,
but he thinks everyone's going to play off, right? Correct. You're going to play off. You're going to throw it underneath. He got relaxed a little bit, and he made a mistake. I mean, that's really what it came down to. But overall, I'm not going to take away from his performance. I thought he had a great performance. He was throwing the ball outside the numbers. He was throwing the ball, in the middle of the field.
Took shots down the sideline again.
The big pass to George Kittle back shoulder was fantastic.
Beautiful.
The one where he bought time and then got it to Elijah Mitchell, and even though it was like a 7-8 yard gain, it looked like Jim was in control of the offense. It was Jimmy G again. It wasn't Jim. It wasn't Jim Garoppolo.
Not James.
It wasn't James. It was Jimmy G, and Jimmy G. That was good. But it's unfortunate they left points out there. They had opportunities to make this game a lot closer, and they didn't execute at the times they needed to execute.
No,
and they didn't get it done.
No, they really didn't. I feel like the offense is kind of set, other than maybe right tackle. Is the defense the number one priority in the offseason from Brad?
Defense?
Yeah,
I think the number one number one situation for the 49ers is probably offensive line. I think defense is right there with it at the cornerback position.
Correct.
I think those are two areas where they need to address. Daniel Brunskill is not the answer at right guard. I think everyone knows that. And after watching him play this year, he's also not the answer at center. So they're going to have questions. If Alex Mack retires, they need to come up with, a center. They're going to have Aaron Banks. They're going to have Jalen Moore. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Mike McGlinchey. Is it time for Mike McGlinchey to move into guard? Are they going to go with Jalen Moore at tackle? Or is it going to be Jalen Moore Jalen Moore and Banks on the inside, maybe, with McGlinchey on the outside for one more year? But they need to stabilize this offensive line because when Jimmy has time, he's able to execute, and Trey's going to need that time next year. That's number one. And then, of course, it's the corner. You're going to have Emmanuel Mosley back for one more year, but your other corner position is completely up in the air, and you need to address it. You have Deommodore Lenoir, who's developing, behind these guys. Ambry Thomas, we don't know what he's going to be yet. But I wouldn't be shocked if they don't draft 1-2 corners in the draft. I know you've been saying 2 corners for a while. It makes sense to me if they do that, depending on how it stacks out and where they're drafting. And who's going to be there in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. You can get some good talent there, but also Alex, who's going to be available in free agency? I haven't looked at it yet.
I haven't looked at that either. And also, what are you going to get for Jimmy in the offseason? Because you're going to get something for Jimmy in the offseason.
Yeah, you're also going to have Stephon Gilmore will be a free agent.
True.
If you decided to address that way. I would prefer they go young, but you don't know what situation they're going to be in if they think they can roll the dice and win the trade next year.
Chauncey, when will we release Sanu and play Hurd or Jennings more?
Well, Hurd's not ready, obviously, or they would have him activated. Mohamed Sanu has played well, so I think actually the guy that would get cut is Jawan Jennings.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is right now. Mohamed Sanu is still playing good enough to try to help this football team.
David, that's a great comment. At least we have home field advantage. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's the way it feels right now.
Yeah, and was that David Campbell?
Yeah.
The question to Jay in the Bay, right, about the burial ground?
Is it accurate?
Well done, sir.
It was a great question.
Well done, sir.
It was a great question.
For some reason, they cannot win at Levi's.
They can't.
Since 2019, they were good at home, and 2020, not good at home. Not better in Arizona.
2021, not good at home so far. Right.
Yeah.
2018 and 2017. I mean, essentially, dude, since we've been at Levi's, other than the 2019 season, it hasn't been that great.
No, I mean, I'm wondering what you guys think about, and this is for everyone. What you guys thought about the boos, early in this game, in the first drive? What did you guys think about, the fans booing in the very first drive of the game?
I thought it was. I personally was just concerned and confused as to why it was going on. Lou, though, a little frustrated here. Let's speak truth. Please don't blame the draft picks like Sermon, etc. Kyle is an absolute S show as a draft talent evaluator. I could post a list if you like. I mean, you can go ahead and post it, but I mean, you better post everything. You better not just post, a handful of picks over the last 5 years.
I mean, post it. I mean, that's fine with me. I'm curious. I'm interested. I think about the draft sometimes. I know people bring it up all the time. But I don't consider anyone from 2021 a miss yet. Because I haven't.
It's too early.
It's too early, right? I mean, the only ones we know that are hits are the ones that are playing, but everyone else you You have to wait for them to develop. Usually rookies aren't expected to play in year one if you have a very good roster.
That's the thing, right? Is like everyone right now who's like, we drafted these guys in the second, third round, they're not even playing. If you're a good
Later, Frank. Thanks for coming by.
Later, Frank. If you're a good football team, you're not playing your first, second, and third round pick. Like you're not supposed to be.
Not usually.
That's not a thing that's supposed to happen. They're supposed to sit and develop and have time. You shouldn't want to be playing them. The only reason that you're playing them, right, is if that's a position of need, like you're filling a hole, like a gaping hole, like you had someone leaving free agency or something like that.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, the 49ers didn't have a lineman leaving in free agency, and you went out and signed Alex Mack to fill the center void, and Daniel Brunskill was the guy that was supposed to be the right guard coming into the year. If you want to upgrade the position, I understand that. But
Chauncey, they're playing Eric Stokes because they had a hole. But Alex is explaining. Yep. When Bill Walsh drafted Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, and all those guys in 1981, he played them all because the previous years, they had went through like 30-something defensive backs looking for a combination that worked. You only play rookies to fill a hole. You don't
Packers,
play them when you have guys to play.
The Packers have Jair Alexander, and then they had a couple of guys who one of them they signed and brought in Kevin King, and the other guy was just a guy that's been on their roster that's been competing. They didn't have someone else other than Jair Alexander. So in the second round, they went out and drafted a position of need, an actual hole. The 49ers came into the season re-signing Jason Verrett, re-signing Emmanuel Mosley. They had the two guys they believed were their starting corners, and then they went out and later got the guy they didn't get the guy that they wanted in Ambry Thomas, right? I mean, they didn't. Ambry Thomas, if we're being honest, if everyone here is being honest, Ambry Thomas was not the corner that they were going after in the draft. They were going after Paulson Adebo.
100%, yeah.
That's who they were targeting. They didn't get their guy. They missed on their mark, and so they took a guy on their list a little bit later that they felt they could develop into potentially what Paulson Adebo could be down the line. But he wasn't going to be what Paulson Adebo was, which is if you have an injury and someone goes down, you can insert him immediately. Because what is Paulson Adebo? Paulson Adebo got drafted early in the second round by the Saints, who moved up 10 spots in front of San Francisco?
Yeah.
Because they had a position of need. They had a hole. Someone left in free agency. There's a hole there. This is the thing that's frustrating for me is the fan base right now. It's like, we're not playing any of these young guys. Well, you're not. This was supposed to be a Super Bowl roster, right? If this was supposed to be a Super Bowl roster, why are you playing the young guys? You shouldn't have to play the young guys. The only reason you're playing the young guys is if you get a bunch of injuries mounting. And guess what? Early in the season, started to happen. You started to have some, at certain positions, injuries starting to pile up and having to turn to young guys. If you're sitting here now going, hey, the season's over, I just want to play the young guys, fine, completely understand. You're willing to sell the season, right? Mm-hmm. And for this to be done, then I understand completely where you're coming from and where your thought process is and where your viewpoint is, right? Let's get ready for next year. That's totally fine. I get it. I don't necessarily know if I agree with you 100% on it, but I at least know where you're coming from, and I respect that opinion.
Right, because we're getting close.
Well, we're there now. I mean, you're at that fork in the road now where the season's either lost or you can find a way to scratch and claw. But it's no longer time too early to be like, hey, it's too early to be selling the season. And we're not at that point anymore. That ship sailed with this loss, and it started to sail with the Colts loss.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. Okay, this is probably gonna be very unpopular. But Trey Sermon is not better than the other running backs on the roster right now.
Not even close.
Ambry Thomas is not better than the other cornerbacks on the roster.
Nope.
Diallo Lenore, though he played well when he played, is not better than the other guys ahead of him. Not yet. He's developing.
Yet. He's close. He's the closest.
Jalen Moore is not better than the tackles that are ahead of him. Talanoa Hufanga is not better than the safeties that are ahead of him. That is just a plain and simple point. They're rookies, okay? And then Chauncey's point about first rounders should play. Does that mean Jordan Love should have started over Aaron Rodgers when he was drafted? Does that mean Aaron Rodgers should have started over Brett Favre when he was drafted? You draft people in situations sometimes to sit. That is what happens. It doesn't matter what round you get them in. Sometimes they're drafted to sit, and you expect them to develop over time.
Chauncey, also, did you really bring up Trayvon Diggs? He's in his second season. He wasn't drafted this year.
Trayvon Diggs was a second-round pick.
Yeah, but in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't drafted this year.
100%.
Guess what the Cowboys secondary was last year? Judy.
Well,
guess what it is this year? Slightly better.
Well,
he had a year to develop.
Trayvon Diggs also is a guy that's hit and miss. He's either going to be absolutely fantastic or absolutely terrible on a play.
Yes.
He's a big physical guy like Patrick Surtain. I mean, they're pretty close to each other. Very skilled though. He's got a lot of athletic ability. I liked him coming out of college. Second round pick. I thought that was a good value for him.
Jalen, wait, Tom Compton. ... I think he's referring to Jalen Moore. Jalen Moore is not better than Tom Compton. ...
I'm talking about the starters.
We're talking about the starters.
And them as Tom Compton. I don't understand the Tom Compton move.
That one doesn't make sense.
I don't understand why Jalen Moore wasn't in there. That makes zero sense to me. And the only thing I can think is he's not getting the practice time there
at right tackle.
And
so they didn't feel comfortable putting the rookie out there in a position where he might.
That's all I can
expose
say.
Himself. Yeah.
But Tom Compton didn't look good. Daniel Brunskill didn't look good. And it's going to be even worse when we watch the All-22. We thought it was bad last week when I had to watch Flanagan Foles play linebacker.
True.
As a former offensive lineman, now I got to watch Daniel Brunskill and Tom Compton play line.
This is bad. Chauncey, so why didn't they sit Joey Bosa? I think he means Nick Bosa. So why didn't they sit Nick Bosa?
Because he was better than the defensive ends that were there.
Because we had a whole defensive end. Come on, man. You're making this too easy for us, or at least for me. Who played defensive end? Who were the DNs before Nick Bosa? Please name them, Chauncey.
Yeah, because I know you're going to tell me Solomon Thomas is a bust, right? So Nick Bosa is better than Solomon Thomas. I mean, I know it's hard for people to believe, but the coaches actually play the best player. Nothing else matters.
On the field. The best players are on the field.
Look at Seattle Seahawks, right? Russell Wilson came in; he wasn't supposed to start.
Brad just said. Kyle said he's only been practicing on the left, so that has to be
there. It is.
Has to be what
he's not comfortable playing on the right hand side,
so they didn't want to put him out there and risk putting him in a situation where yes, it's the same position, but it's the other. Everything just flips, right?
It's completely different.
It's totally different.
And the fact that they're saying that they've probably been going into this practicing Compton at right tackle. And more because they're developing more, right? Which means that's why they have never moved him to guard. They're needing to develop him a certain way. He's not ready to handle everything.
Correct.
Rookies develop at different paces, so that makes a lot of sense. And thanks, Brad, for telling us that. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's kind of how we felt. They play the best player, but our first offers bricks every first 3-round picks. Well, I mean, apparently.
Yeah.
All right.
I seen Bill talking about Jimmy only throws over the middle. I seen him completing passes on the outside. I've seen him completing passes to George Kittle along the sideline, to Brandon Ayuk on outs, getting the ball out there to Kyle Juszczyk with a knee down. That's not a good argument for Jimmy Garoppolo today. If you want to make that argument for typically, but this Jimmy Garoppolo is pointing for George Kittle to go somewhere else.
Go to the corner.
George Kittle doesn't win on a route, and he's like, hey, go over there, adjust. Jimmy's not the problem. If you're still blaming Jimmy, you just don't like Jimmy.
You just don't like Jimmy, and just say it. Just say it. It's okay.
Perfectly okay.
It's okay to not like Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's okay to say you want Trey Lance to start. All I'm saying is Jimmy Garoppolo has not been the problem for 2 straight weeks. Nope. It's not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Nope. Not anymore. Jimmy's flipped a switch.
Jimmy's had problems.
Not lately.
Jimmy has been the problem against the Colts. Jimmy's a problem. But the last 2 weeks, no. Like I said, I'm always going to just call it how I see it, and that's just how I see it.
Gary, do you think they will play Trey now? No, I'm not convinced that they're going to play Trey right now because I'm not 100% convinced that they truly believe they're completely out of this yet. And they're not. They're not completely out of the playoff hunt.
They're not out of the playoff hunt. I think it's getting close. I mean, it really is.
A loss next week pretty much.
Well, the Rams game is going to be tough.
It's going to be rough.
Alex, that Rams team is really good. It's
going to be rough, bro.
Really good.
It's going to be rough.
I'm interested to break it down.
You know what the worst part is, too, is you don't even get to see Von Miller this week, so you don't even know what the defensive scheme is going to look like, what they're going to try and use him. They're not even going to play him this week.
Plays on the outside.
I'm aware of that.
If you don't have Mike McGlinchey, you know what Jalen Moore better do during the week? Practice right tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you can talk Joe Staley into coming back to play right tackle for the game. I mean, that's kind of the world of hurt we're in. It's got to be Jalen Moore. If it's Tom Compton, he's going to absolutely obliterate Tom Compton.
True.
That's not a good look.
Caleb, hello, chat. I would like to thank you for all the yikes. Keep up the good work. Big yikes is going to be fun this week. And we need it to be fun after this game, though. And we need to be able to have a good laugh.
Matt said he doesn't like Jimmy G.
Hey, fair. Yeah. Totally fine. But you like Jimmy G more than Jared Goff. Oh, it's JG. JG is Jared Goff. It has to be Jared Goff.
Oh, good call.
It has to be Jared Goff.
I don't like Jared Goff, maybe. There you go.
Matt, if that's what that was, sir. Just glorious. Just absolutely glorious. Jay Ellie a little bit ago. Aziz in coverage. Giving me migraines.
Yeah, it's not a good matchup. Oh, no. That was a matchup issue for the 49ers today. Anytime you saw a tight end, Zach Ertz, or a running back, James Conner, on Azeez Al-Shaair, it was a matchup problem.
True. Brad, could you put Banks at right guard and Brunskill at right tackle?
The problem is Brunskill looks bad at right guard, and it's easier to play right guard than right tackle because there's more space out there.
Correct.
Brunskill has taken a step back from the way that he looked in 2019, so it's a little scary.
Bill, no scrambling ability, can't extend plays, and when pressure throws in middle, double or triple coverage, poor man's Kirk Cousins.
Okay. You know what Kyle Shanahan likes? Kirk Cousins.
Does.
And we're not arguing that he doesn't have limitations. We think Trey Lance is the future, and Trey Lance is not going to have those limitations.
No.
Right now, Trey Lance has a limitation of, number one, he doesn't understand the offense compared to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Can't find open receivers.
And number two, he doesn't operate over the intermediate part of the field where Kyle Shanahan's offense is predicated to go a lot. And that he was missing those receivers against Arizona last time.
True. $5 super chat here from Jag. Jag, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Everything has gone wrong this year. Injuries, bad play calling, penalties, turnovers. Not a Super Bowl team. I agree with the injuries. I agree with the penalties. I agree with the turnovers. Not so much the play calling. Definitely the execution has been piss poor on both sides of the football all season long, consistently.
100%.
Not a Super Bowl team. Not at all. Not right now. Definitely not right now. And I don't know if they can find that right now. With how much time is left in the season, it's going to be very hard to find that going forward. Jalen Hurd, Dante Pettis, Kinlaw, Reuben Foster, CJ Beathard, Akilla Witherspoon, Joshua Garnett, Will Redmond, all stone bricks other than Samuel Bosa Warner. We are F in the first 3 rounds.
Okay, now name all the hits.
Yeah, name the hits. Is it easier to hit on a first round pick or a 5th round pick?
It's actually easier to hit on an undrafted free agent than it is a first round pick. There are more undrafted free agents playing in the NFL than first round picks. Yeah, that is interesting.
Well, here's the thing, right? The problem I have with 49ers fans when it comes to the 3 first round picks, when they talk about some of the misses that we have, is I don't hear them talking about really any other team's hits or misses. I mean, really, if the basis, right, for 49ers struggling with first round picks, if the basis is that we haven't hit consistently on guys, it's 1 out of every 3. Look at the rest of the organizations in football. How many of them are hitting home runs on every first round pick?
Well, I mean, let's look at the second round pick. Deebo Samuel looks like an absolute stud. He can be an all pro this year.
Yep.
Fred Warner was a 3rd round pick. He's one of the best linebackers in the league. Mm-hmm. That's just naming 2. If you hit on guys like that, Greenlaw was a 5th.
I know.
George Kittle was a 5th. I mean, I know the argument is that we don't hit in the first 3 rounds. But Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner prove that you can. Nick Bosa's a first-round pick. Those are all hits. And those are all generational talent hits, right? Those are all guys that are all-pro caliber players. So, I mean, I get it. I think you can criticize them. Solomon Thomas was a bad pick.
He was terrible.
That was a bad pick. Reuben Foster ends up being a terrible pick, not for talent reasons, but because he can't keep his head on straight.
That's for me. The Reuben Foster one. That's one where it's not fair to label that a bust because of talent. That's a bust because of things outside of your control. I mean, if there was a lot of red flags on Reuben Foster in terms of his decision making that are out there, but I haven't heard a report that's come out that said everybody knew Reuben Foster made poor decisions off the field at Alabama consistently, and the 49ers still decided to take him. Those reports don't exist. They didn't exist. They don't exist. There's no way to know that the guy is going to completely crap the bed off the field. There's no way to know that. You think if the Raiders know that Henry Ruggs is going to make that kind of decision that they take him where they took him in the first round?
And then Chauncey also, I don't think, did he mention Brandon Ayuk?
No, didn't name Brandon Ayuk.
I don't think Brandon Ayuk's a miss.
Oh, especially the way he's played the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And what he did last season. My goodness. So when you think we spent 3 first round, the guy needs reps, and odds of us getting in is not that good. Look, we're in the firm believer category here, Gary, that once the season in terms of you making the playoffs is out of reach, it's when it's Trey's time. You're not going to make the playoffs. Right now, they are not statistically. They're not
actually
outside,
not even that far.
They're not even outside. Well, I mean, Minnesota just lost today. I know that the Atlanta Falcons beat the Saints, and so they gave themselves a game there. They got themselves a game, but they're a game ahead of San Francisco. So you're still a game out of the playoff spot. The season's not over yet. Playoffs are not out of the picture. But, we're all sitting here going right now, right? The reality of playoffs is now much more difficult.
A little bit farther away, especially with the Rams game on the horizon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, this would have been big. It would have put them right in the thick of the 7th seed. So the loss is huge. And I think they are inching closer to, having to play a lot of the rookies. But in the same regard, someone like an Aaron Banks, for instance, if you decide to go Trey Lance, If Aaron Banks isn't ready, you don't want Aaron Banks in there because then Aaron Banks is going to make it more difficult for Trey Lance.
Chauncey, 30 teams passed on Ruben.
Wow. So, what's your point?
Apparently, he was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick in that draft. Apparently,
he was supposed to be top 10. 100% he was, but he had questions of injury. It was injury questions, not off the field as much. There was a little off the field issues. But so what? How many people passed on Randy Moss? How many teams passed on DK Metcalf?
Laramie Tunsil on draft night?
Yeah, people
on draft night?
All the time, people get passed up. That's
based on that logic. Then the Packers.
Yeah,
they should have never taken a chance on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it was 22 teams passed on him, whatever it was.
A bunch, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Okay,
including San Francisco.
Okay, it's an interesting take. And when it comes to the draft stuff, I mean, did they miss on some? Yeah. Did they hit on some? Yeah. I think that's pretty consistent with every team in the league.
It's Matt did clarify. I'd scarf down a bucket full of Jimmy G rather than Goff.
Yeah, I think we all would. Well, I know I would. Yeah, 100%.
In all honesty, Sean McVay would too.
That is part of the reason that I always was comfortable playing the Rams as the 49ers. Because I figured Goff was going to lose at some point. I don't feel as comfortable with Matthew Stafford. He's getting it done.
He is.
He's solid.
He is. Draft a bottom tier punter in the 4th round. Okay.
That bottom tier punter is having one heck of a season.
He's having his best season as a punter.
Yeah, he might make the Pro Bowl.
He's going to make the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
He's been absolutely phenomenal.
Might want to take a different angle.
All right. Well, hey now, who's worse starting QB than Jimmy? Disregard replacements due to injury. So who's a worse starting quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo?
Tua Tagovailoa.
100%. Tyrod Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently. I mean, yes, he had a nice week this week, but when Joe Burrow throws pick sixes,
Danny Dimes.
Danny Dimes. You mean Danny Derp?
Yeah, Danny Derp.
Let's be real. Danny Derp. Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Darnold.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, right
Trevor
now.
Lawrence.
100% right now. Yes.
That was easy.
I mean, they'll all be getting better, right?
They'll
be getting better.
They're all going to get like the young guys. That's not to hate on the young guys. That's just saying
the rookies are growing.
They're rookies.
I mean, is Jimmy Garoppolo the worst quarterback in the division? Yeah, because the division has some pretty special quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
But
he's not worse than Geno Smith.
Well, he's better than Ben Roethlisberger as well at this point.
That's also
Roethlisberger's not that good anymore.
No, he's playing pretty.
He's better than what's his name up there in Philly too.
Oh, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, better than him. He's better than a lot of quarterbacks. I'm not saying he's like
right in the middle of the pack.
He's probably like close to 20th, maybe right now, around there.
The last few weeks, he's playing the top 15.
Oh, 100%. The last 2 weeks, he's played great. But I'm saying, being fair, he's probably like in the 20 around
typically
there.
Around the 20 range.
Without going through and counting it all?
Correct. The issue with missing on the first 3 rounds is how much better the roster be with all the hits in rounds 4 through 6 that they've had. I mean, maybe you also don't take those players, right? If you draft other players at those positions, because they're going to it's position, right? They're going after a position. So
that's the whole thing. If you're drafting for a position of need, or if you're drafting for best player available, if you're drafting for a position of need, sometimes you reach a little bit farther than you should. And they were building a brand new organization. This organization was in shambles in 2017 when they got there, and they were trying to completely restructure it. And they took chances. They admitted they took chances on players to try to turn this thing around in a hurry, because they had a 4-year plan that they wanted to implement and get done.
Lou wants you to explain the Kinlaw pick, please.
What about it?
Apparently, because he's been hurt this year, this means that Javon Kinlaw's a bust. Does everyone forget that Eric Armstead, who's playing the best football of his career right now, was on IR his first 2 years?
Well, Kinlaw's injury is from playing last year.
Too much.
From Dallas. He got hurt playing in Dallas.
And played through the rest of that season and has played through this season the best.
And then they did
off-season surgery
and found out that they missed something. They didn't take care of it all. And now he's had an ACL reconstruction. I was clear about this a couple episodes ago. I said if Kinlaw doesn't play well next year, you can call him a bust. And if he plays well at 100%, or if he doesn't play, he's a bust. But if he plays next year and he plays well, then I don't want to, you know what I mean? That's just how it is, right? But I mean,
you're willing to wait 3 years before you make a
I usually like to determine if someone's going to be a bust by them actually playing on the field, right? If you don't see it. Akilla Witherspoon, I didn't see it. I saw talent, but he wasn't able to be productive, consistently. So he's a bust. And as a 3rd round pick, how much of a bust can you be? I think we put a lot of value on naming people busts. But.
Rich, thank you for the $5 super
you,
chat.
Rich.
We really appreciate that. A big time there. If there was a question that was supposed to be asked with that too, and you didn't get to send it over, send it this way. Absolutely. I'm one of those guys too with players.
I don't even drink, so Bill, that's terrible. And what is it that Tua has done that makes you think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you saying he is better than Tua? And who is Hurst?
I think he probably meant to put Hurts, as in Jalen Hurts.
Oh, neither one of them are better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and they haven't proved it.
What's the one specific change you'd make to turn it around from Matt Burgos?
On offense or defense?
That's the thing, right?
On offense,
take O first.
On offense, you need more consistent play from your offensive line. The problem is, it appears you don't have a better offensive guard option than Daniel Brunskill. And if you don't have a better option than Daniel Brunskill, then you're rolling with Daniel Brunskill. And they've tried chipping on the outside to give help. They've tried helping double with Alex Mack. But every time he's singled up, he gets absolutely beat. They drafted Aaron Banks with the thought that Aaron Banks was going to be the guy that could answer, and he hasn't developed fast enough to be able to take that spot. I don't think they were targeting Aaron Banks in the draft, but that's who they ultimately went with.
You and I both know that they weren't targeting Aaron Banks in the draft, and it was a move. It was a swerve. It was
they decided to go developmental.
They missed on the two guys that they wanted, and 100%. They had to. That's what happens sometimes. How bad must Demo and Ombre be if they can't start over two old men off the street, one who can't tackle and one who's a lunatic?
Now, Lou is talking about, I didn't say he was a bust. Okay, Lou, I'm not reading your comments all the time, so apologies for insinuating that. But yeah, you're right. In fact, John Lynch in the offseason was talking about that they did put a bigger emphasis on drafting players that were healthy this year. That's why they didn't take some chances in this draft on some certain guys. But Kinlaw was old thinking, where you were taking chances, and they knew that they needed to get somebody to fill that role that they were losing from Buckner. So they drafted for need. And a lot of times when you draft for need, you don't always get the best value, right? If they would have drafted, Christian Wirfs or somebody like that, everyone wanted them to draft a wide receiver right there. They ended up getting Brandon Ayuk, and I think Brandon Ayuk's going to be perfectly fine for, where they drafted him.
Absolutely.
But I think that is the big question. Was I a fan of Kinlaw? I even told Lou this. Was I someone that wanted Kinlaw? You knew me. I didn't want Kinlaw. That wasn't the guy I wanted to draft.
There were plenty of other people.
I wanted to draft Chase Claypool.
Yes.
That's who I wanted. I would have drafted Chase Claypool
at 11. At 20.
No, it was at 13.
13.
And they ended up trading back and going 14. I would have taken him. That's who I wanted on this football team.
Ant was a staunch Chase Claypool guy 100%. From literally about the moment draft season started until the first day of draft day. And Claypool wasn't going anywhere near that high, and Ant was still like, I would still take him there.
100%. If you listen to the first ever podcast, it's me talking about Chase Claypool half the time.
Correct.
But as far as Kinlaw goes, what I tried to do was get behind it because I seen what they were doing, right? They were trying to make sure they could keep Jimmy Ward, Eric Armstead, and then bring in Kinlaw as an option to fill that role. And the thought process, I think, behind them was Kinlaw's a bigger body, so he was going to help you against the run, where Buckner was a little bit lighter. So if you were going to lose a little bit in the pass area, you're going to make up for that with Nick Bosa on the outside. So you could lose a little bit there, but you could make up for it in the run area. And it hasn't panned out because he was injured. And yes, he did have injury concerns. So that's 100%. But they admitted that was a mistake. That was a fault of theirs, that they were drafting players and taking chances on guys who had injury history, hoping for the upside. And they've shifted roles. So if you want to get on them for that, that's 100%. You can do that. I'm just saying that, that is what they did. And they admitted it.
David, the scary thing is if Banks can't beat out Brunskill right now, he must be bad right now. I don't know if he's necessarily bad right now. Just maybe he doesn't have the skill. He doesn't have the things necessary. I've heard them talk about how they want him to put on muscle. They want him to, maybe drop a little bit of weight, get a little bit stronger. It might not be a thing where they think he's bad in terms of technique or things, but they're not seeing the power out of him that they were expecting. Maybe some of the mobility, the agility. Maybe he's just not understanding concepts. There's a lot of reasons why things may not be lining up for Banks to be on the field. But I'm not ready to throw the kid under the bus for that.
He's not going to play at 335 pounds.
He's big.
He needs to drop 10 pounds. They got to change his body. They got to change his lateral quickness. He's got to get better with some of his technique things. That's what needs to happen with Banks. We saw it in camp. We saw him getting absolutely demolished by Hurst.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maurice Hurst
was way too fast for him, and they were all giving him problems. If you saw that one practice, and we saw him 3 or 4 times at practice, if you saw that one practice, you would know Aaron Banks wasn't ready to go this year.
Correct.
And he wasn't. You know what I mean? And
this is why if you come to this podcast a lot, or you stop by and you're like, you guys never talk about Banks, you never talk about Ambry Thomas. We were at practices. We saw Aubrey Thomas, not ready.
Not even close.
Aaron Banks, not ready.
They're definitely development.
Anyone talking about how these guys should be on the field wasn't being honest with you. They weren't being genuine. They weren't going to camp and going to practices and being like, man, these guys just have a lot of things they need to work on. They were just like, oh, well, they just don't want to put these guys in. Oh, they just don't want to play them. Oh, they're not developing them. No, throwing a guy out there to fail, that's not development.
Well, what's crazy, right? Is
that's sacrificing your team for one guy. You're putting one guy above the team. You can't do that. It's a team sport. There's 11 guys on offense, there's 11 guys on defense, there's 11 guys on special teams. One guy's development can't be more important than the 33 other guys on the field.
No,
it can't.
And Alex, was crazy, right? Is all through training camp, the most important thing was practice reps. Now that these guys are getting practice reps, the most important thing is game reps. It's completely different. No, you can get better at practice, 100%, and any coach knows that. Right. Anyone knows you can get better, and he's getting better. He's just not going to be developing at the level that he needs to. And they said at some point this year, right, he's going to contribute to this team. John Lynch said it.
Tick.
No, not really, because...
No, I mean, like, tick. Like, the time is getting close. The way that things are going. The time is ticking down to Aaron Banks' opportunity.
They're going to give him a shot at some point. It's inevitable.
I mean, right before the season started, there was a lot of talk about how Banks was going to supplant Brunskill. It was going to happen. I was the guy who was firmly in that Banks is going to be later towards the end of the season is when I saw that time coming for Banks. It wasn't there yet.
David's saying, I did not phrase it well. I didn't mean that he is always going to be bad, but
must be now.
No, 100% agree.
No, he's not there yet. You aren't wrong. And Chauncey had asked, how many more games does Shanahan have before he's fired? End of next season or sooner?
He's not even on the hot seat until the end of next season.
Correct.
Because he has to have one full season with the rookie quarterback that Jed York signed off for him to have in Trey Lance. Yep. And they need to play with a rookie pay scale. So, no, as much as people want him to be on the hot seat's not there. It's not there until after that happens.
Bill Beeben, Hurts gives Eagles a chance every play. Trust me, I'm not saying Hurts is good, but his running abilities opens up passing lanes. Jimmy running ability matches his passing ability. Jalen Hurts misses open receivers.
Well, Hurts hasn't proven that he can win football games. Jimmy Garoppolo has proven he can win football games. Now, he's losing football games right now, so if you want to throw that on there. But today's loss, for instance, wasn't on him.
No.
Jalen Hurts is a check down king. You think Jimmy Garoppolo is a check down guy? Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has more speed on the outside than any quarterback.
This drives me nuts with 49ers fans sometimes in their evaluation of quarterbacks and what quarterbacks do. Right, you see Jalen Hurts running around like a crazy person, throwing the ball underneath, and once every now and again throwing the deep ball. Against 49ers, he threw the deep ball, but he hasn't done that consistently all year.
Yeah,
he has. Sorry, I hate to spoil everybody's perception of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts throws the ball underneath a lot. He checks down about as much as Smith does, and Smith didn't have near the amount of athleticism. Does Hurts have the arm to go deep? Yeah, but he doesn't do it consistently.
Well, and, I seen Matt right here said they need to change their draft strategy and target guys that have developed in college and rather than target athletic specimens. I'll go like this. Okay, number one, Trey Lance is different because he's a quarterback, right?
Correct.
But then you're going to get into the other ones. Aaron Banks was a 4-year starter at Notre Dame. Then you have Trey Sermon, who played for 4 years in college. Some at Oklahoma and then Ohio State. Aubrey Thomas had the COVID year, so he sat out. But he had played, a couple years. That's why he's a developmental guy. Jalen Moore played a lot of college football. Elijah Mitchell, 4 years of college football. They're drafting guys that... Deommodore Lenoir, 4 years of college football. Actually, I think he sat out 1 year, too. The COVID. But these guys played, 3-4 years of football, and they developed. Hufanga developed. I don't think that is I don't think it's a strategy problem.
Chauncey, he's a losing coach. I'm frustrated as a fan. How are you not? It's been 20 years. Come on.
Is Kyle Shanahan responsible for those 20 years?
No. This is my thing with
fully
fans.
Encompassing.
You are allowed to be frustrated. That's not what we're saying. And I'm not saying that I'm not frustrated. And is not saying that he's not frustrated. We are definitely frustrated. But you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to sit here and pretend like before Kyle Shanahan got here, it was all sunshines and roses. Right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that was the case. The Harbaugh years were great. They were fantastic. I loved the Harbaugh years. I was very fond of the Harbaugh years. You know what I wasn't a fan of? Everything that came before the Harbaugh years. Everything that came before the Harbaugh years.
Yeah.
You know what else I'm not a fan of? Everything that came after the Harbaugh years. And you know what I know right now? I know right now we have a situation that's closer to the Harbaugh year than anything we've ever had. Pre-Harbaugh, post-Harbaugh. I'm not ready to go back to that. I'm not.
It's a scary thing, and I think we have to give it time with Kyle Shanahan. And I see that Rich said, then how do you draft them in the win mode now? The one thing I will say about this,
That's complicated. That's a tough question.
Well, here it is, though, right? We were all over this in the draft.
Also
Number
true.
one, they didn't want to draft Aaron Banks.
Nope.
They didn't want to draft Ambry Thomas.
They didn't want to draft Trey Sermon where they took him.
They wanted to take Trey Sermon where they took Ambry Thomas. We were all over this. We knew they were targeting Walker Little.
Yep.
To play on, he was gonna come in. He was gonna play right guard, and then he was eventually gonna play right tackle from McGlinchey from Stanford. He went 2 spots ahead of where they were gonna pick.
Yep.
So then they were gonna pivot, and they've got Aaron Banks. Then they were gonna go get Paulson Adebo.
And they traded up.
And they were gonna trade up. Remember, New Orleans jumped ahead and got him. New Orleans grabbed Paulson Adebo and took him. John Lynch admitted in the press conference
Post that round,
we were looking at a guy, Paulson Adebo. And once that happened, they completely pivoted. They had to trade up. They didn't want to miss out on Trey Sermon now. They wanted to add him. But then it became a developmental draft, right? You got to move down. So now your cornerback is not a guy that can start. Your cornerback's a guy you're going to have to develop. And the guy that went and stood up on the table was Adam Peters, and said, hey, Ambry Thomas is that guy. And they went ahead and selected him. So once you had a couple of misses, it pivoted your entire draft. I think John Lynch, if he was ever able to completely say it transparently, would admit to everyone that they struggled in rounds 2 and 3, and that it completely changed the draft on day 2 for them. They recovered in day 3 and had one heck of a draft in day 3, but that doesn't change what happened in day 2, which they didn't execute at the level that they should have.
And it's hard, but again, this is what's the tough part about the draft, right? It's hard to know. It's hard to know where the guys that you're targeting are on other people's boards. You can make phone calls, you can ask around, you can kind of see where people sit, who they're eyeing, who they like, who they don't. You have personal relationships as coaches with some of these guys. Yeah. So you may have an idea. You may know who some of their scouts are in the building and have an idea of the type of players that they eye and who they go after. You may have scouts show up at the same place, scouting the same players. So you may have like a genuine idea, but you don't know necessarily where they value them, right? So it's impossible to know how aggressive or how not aggressive. You and I kept saying it though, right? This draft, I'd rather you be more aggressive than less aggressive. And I would be 100% on. I mean, I would be lying to all of you right now if I was sitting here and saying, right, on day 2 of the draft that they did everything that they needed to do. They didn't. They didn't do everything that they needed to do. They just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I see Rich is saying, how do you draft scrubs? Who's scrubs? Just because they haven't developed yet. I mean, yeah, you want them to. If you have guys that you think that should be playing right now because they were drafted, if you're in a win now mode, you're not expecting a rookie to come in and start. You're expecting, unless they're Nick Bosa and they're the 2nd overall pick, you're not expecting them to come in and start. What you're expecting is, the guys that you have as starters. Win now Super Bowl teams don't usually plug and play a rookie to win football games for you.
True.
And if you're having to plug and play multiple, if you were expecting Trey Sermon, Aaron Banks, I mean, think about Diameter. Are we really naming all these guys and expecting them to contribute and we're going to be a Super Bowl team? If that's the case, it's just not right. I mean, we went to camp, Alex, and everyone was talking up Trey Sermon. Every single person.
I mean,
and we saw Elijah Mitchell.
We could not. I couldn't get it out of people's mouths fast enough. I mean, before we even got to camp, right? We had Chapman on. He was very high on Sermon. We had our boy Football Unlocked on. Very high on Trey Sermon. Nitty Gritty came on.
Yeah.
Very high on Trey Sermon. Everyone is high on Trey Sermon, and we get to camp, and I was like, hey, man, I didn't see a lot from Trey Sermon today. Who do you think the best running back was out there? Because when I saw Trey Sermon out there, he looked okay, but I didn't see anything crazy. And you were like, Elijah Mitchell. And I was like, oh, but he's running with the 3rd team. Like, it's because he's running with the 3rd team, right? And you're like, nope. Has nothing to do with the 3rd team. Has everything to do with vision. Has everything to do with how he hits the hole, how he gets out in space. He's just a better running back right now. Okay. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's good to know. And then he dealt with the injury, right? We saw Trey Sermon taking the reps. And I was like, all right, well, it's just going to be the Sermon Mostert show. We get to Detroit. And it's Elijah Mitchell. And it's like, wait, what? Hold up, what? I mean, he just came out of nowhere. You were all over it. I wasn't going to go against you on it because I didn't see anything from Trey Sermon that made me go, yeah, Trey Sermon is the guy. But, if you're still on the Trey Sermon train, I really hate to break it to you. I don't know what you're still holding on to. Look at Elijah Mitchell.
Trey Sermon, we were watching Green Bay, me and you. And what's the other running back? Not Aaron Jones. What's the other guy? Dylan. A.J. Dillon. That's what they expect Trey Sermon to be.
Eventually.
But A.J. Dillon right now is a one-cut-and-go guy. Trey Sermon is not a one-cut-and-go guy. I know people have been saying that, but he's not.
No,
and
not
until he is, he's just not going to be very fruitful in this offense. So he needs to develop. I think they thought he was going to develop quicker. But
I don't think they expected him to take this long.
No,
I wonder if he just there's just
think about it, right?
Some knee stuff still.
It was supposed to be what? It was supposed to be Mostert. It was supposed to be Wilson.
Wasn't supposed to be Trey Sermon.
They were supposed to be able to develop these guys. These guys weren't supposed to have to create right now. And JaMychal Hasty, I seen someone else brought up JaMychal Hasty, and we went over this a little bit. JaMychal Hasty's playing a third down back role,
correct? Which
means he's a receiver and a slash guy. He's playing the Jerick McKinnon role. He's not expected to. He's not in competition with the other two backs. So Trey Sermon's in competition with Wilson and with Elijah Mitchell.
Chauncey, context matters, right? 4.4 yards per carry is great, but 4.4 yards per carry versus soft coverage with teams playing back and not giving up anything underneath, and you handing the ball underneath in favorable run boxes. I mean, if you're not getting 4.4 yards per carry in those situations, then I have questions and concerns.
Do people watch the Green Bay game and then watch Elijah Mitchell play any game after that and tell me that Trey Sermon's better than Elijah Mitchell?
Not. When teams stack the box against Elijah Mitchell still finds holes and gets 5 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry. When Trey Sermon gets handed the ball in non-favorable run boxes, we're lucky if we're going to get a yard or two.
They literally mucked up the middle of the defense, said, Jimmy's not going to beat us, Trey Sermon go beat us. And they knew he couldn't consistently do it. And he got 4.4 yards a carry, but it made it hard. And the 49ers almost won that game, but they definitely missed Elijah Mitchell. Trey Sermon is not as good a running back as Elijah Mitchell. It doesn't mean he won't be down the road when he develops. He's a different style of running back, but he can't hit the holes. He doesn't read the holes like Elijah Mitchell does. The vision is not there. He
doesn't find the space.
He's going to be a solid running back, but he needs development.
He needs time. It's not right now. Right. Throwing him out there isn't going to get him better right now either.
They're saying Sermon should be played more. Why?
What does he add?
He doesn't, because Elijah Mitchell needs those snaps. Trey Sermon can't catch the ball.
No,
Trey Sermon can't run a screen pass.
If Trey Sermon is out, he also doesn't pick up well right now in pass pros either.
No.
If you have a play action set and a guy blitzing off the edge, Trey Sermon's going to miss it 50% of the time.
If you go back and watch those games Trey Sermon played, they set up screens, and every single one of those, he was in front of the offensive lineman. He's supposed to be behind him. His timing is off. He's just not executing. It's too bad. It really is. And he's going to develop, and he's going to eventually get in there with Elijah Mitchell, and they're going to be a 1-2 punch.
This conversation shouldn't even be happening for Trey Sermon right now. That's the unfortunate situation, because
Mark.
The fan base is now split over this, and it's just ridiculous. It shouldn't have to be split. He wasn't supposed to be a guy that we were supposed to even have to rely on this year. That's just the reality of the situation. And yes, Chauncey, we did watch Trey Sermon in college, and if you were here on draft night, you would have known that as soon as we made that pick, we weren't very high on it for a specific reason. He wasn't a guy that fit the traditional mold of a running back in Kyle Shanahan's system, and he struggled to catch the ball in the backfield.
What does running in college have to do with running in the NFL? It's a different game.
What?
The way you play in college has to translate to the offense you're going to play in the NFL and the style at which you're going to play in the NFL. He ran a different style of offense in college. So did you watch him play in college?
Nope.
And then go ahead and tell me that Oklahoma and Ohio State run the same offense as Kyle Shanahan, the same zone run scheme.
We hoped, right? The idea was the hope was there that because he ran a zone run scheme, just a zone run scheme, that it would somewhat translate to what Kyle Shanahan was doing, and that the learning curve wouldn't be as big. That was the hope.
I thought he was going to be a short yardage guy. That's what I thought.
Chauncey, we just said it. The reason why we drafted him is because the eventual idea is that he becomes what A.J. Dillon is right now.
Yeah, and then you have a 1-2 punch between Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. And Trey Sermon's a guy that can eat a lot of carries because he's big, physical, and he can take a lot of hits and a lot of contact. And Elijah Mitchell won't have to carry the burden like he is right now. But in the foreseeable future, Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to take those extra snaps.
Yep.
Now, next year, Mostert's a free agent. Jeff Wilson Jr. is a free agent. So your running back room is going to look different. You're going to have Elijah Mitchell. You're going to have Trey Sermon, and you're going to have JaMychal Hasty as the third down back. I mean, and they might even draft someone unless they bring Raheem Mostert back.
Rich, we have joked about that before the podcast, that maybe we should just trade every draft pick that's before the 5th round.
Yes. And that's also why we're a big fan of the recent trade for a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
5th round pick. He was a 5th round pick. There you go. He's going to be a stud, right? He's going to end up being like Nick Bosa or something.
True. You're not wrong. You think Sermon would learn better from the grind? You think Sermon would learn better from the grinder, Urban Meyer?
He would fit better in the Urban Meyer scheme.
Why? Because Ohio State, what Day runs there is basically Urban Meyer's offense in a scheme.
100%.
Oh, what a surprise!
There are offenses he would fit better in. That's just not the point. But they think that they can develop him because who was Bobby Turner a huge fan of? Najee Harris. Also, the running back, Jonathan Taylor from Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
He was huge fans of them. What does Trey Sermon have a similar body style to? Those two guys. But he's got to be a one cut and go guy, and he's not Najee Harris, and he's definitely not Jonathan Taylor. He's got a lot more development. That's why he was a second round pick.
Chauncey, let's trade the next 3 years of draft picks for Belichick and throw him Banahan.
Okay. You know what? Hey, I bet you right now, if they offered to trade Shanahan for Belichick, they would do that in New England.
You think they would?
100%. What was Belichick got a few more years, Jeff? Shanahan's young.
They would do it.
They would do it.
They probably would.
Yeah, why not?
I think that'd be a terrible move for us, though. A few years later.
Belichick would not be, or he'd probably retire.
Probably true.
I mean, even though he would have one heck of a roster and a better quarterback.
Also true.
The question was, would he be like, you know what? Jimmy, I'm going to trade
I finally got Jimmy now.
I'm going to trade Trey.
I finally got Jimmy back.
He's a crazy guy. Who knows?
He is a crazy guy. That's what I'm waiting for. Sermon to develop and become a short yardage guy. May break a few here, and he's a 1-2 punch. Tommy, that's what the eventual idea was. That this move, the Sermon pick was a pick for the future. The Elijah Mitchell pick for the future. Aaron Banks was a hope, right? It was a hope that he could be that guy right now, but it hasn't panned out. The reality is it hasn't panned out. Aubrey Thomas was always a pick for the future. I mean,
because they knew he sat on an entire year. They knew he was going to develop.
That's the unfortunate thing, right? Is they tried to go after a couple guys in the second day 2 that were supposed to be potential right now guys. Or at least one of them that had the both of them had the possibility to be right now.
Well, the linemen, yes, the second round linemen, but they had right now guys in Jason Verrett and Emmanuel Moses.
Correct, and so it's just one of those things where it was always going to kind of be one of those things where you were going to go after pieces for the future. You were trying to shore up. You thought you had the roster this year to make the run, and you were shoring up the pieces for next year. You had guys sitting in the wings waiting, so that way if this team got it done this year and you had to move on from a bunch of these guys because of the salary cap, that you could. You had the guys waiting in the wings ready to take over so that you didn't have that Super Bowl hangover or that playoff run hangover.
Well, think about Bill Walsh, right?
Yeah.
So Bill Walsh drafts Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, he has all these guys. And then what does he do again? He turns around, and it's not that long later, Don Griffin, Tim McKyer. He keeps developing guys because as you're winning and you have the team that you have, you're building for the future. This is just what you do as a roster. You're trying to consistently reload. That way you can stay consistently winning. The problem is the 49ers aren't winning right now.
No, not at all.
That is the issue. But, I mean, I don't know if this draft is going to turn out to be good. I don't know. I do know Hufanga looks like he has some potential.
Definitely.
Jalen Moore, potential. Deommodore Lenore, potential. Elijah Mitchell, huge potential. And then you've got
Trey Lance potential.
Oh, gigantic.
Out the window. He actually might have the most potential of all of them.
And actually, I think Banks has potential. My problem is I haven't seen any of it to make me think he's going to be ready anytime soon. I wish I could sit at practice and watch, and then I would have a better idea of where he's at. But I don't know.
We're not the most injured team this year. I think the point that Chauncey's trying to make, Matt, is actually if you take last year's injury and combine them with this year's, the total number of injuries,
we're not this year.
You're still like up in the echelon of teams with the most injuries. But in terms of right now, this year, we are definitely not the most injured team. But we've had injuries to key positions that were important for the 49ers to have success, right? Your front four in San Francisco is built into your identity. Your front seven is built into your identity. Losing Dre Greenlaw, losing Javon Kinlaw, now losing a piece in D Ford, those things don't help. They don't make your task easier and you establishing and controlling your identity. It's not good. And then the offensive line, the non-consistent play on your right side of the line has been detrimental to the 49ers all season long. When they play well, the team has had success offensively, and consistency has started to show up a little bit. And when they don't play well, it's inconsistency, it's mistakes, and shooting yourself in the foot at the wrong time.
I think KNDR is right. Why don't we just turn injuries off? Dang it. Somebody turn the injuries off. I think NFL in general, right? If you could turn injuries off, they would love it because there's too many guys getting injured all across. I mean, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins weren't there today. AJ Green wasn't there.
They lose Pugh in the first drive.
You know what they did? They did enough to win. So I'm not gonna let injuries be the excuse for this game. The 49ers made mistakes. You know, I mean, it happened. And you're right. You're right. Coach's viewpoint. Coach Tim, 100%. That's why Bill Walsh was a genius. He was very good at talent evaluating. There were certain positions he struggled at, through the years, but he hit on a lot of them, and that's why they stayed relevant for so long.
True. It really is true. Bill here, Jets, please sell. We need an owner with as much passion as the fan base. If this was pre-Harbaugh, if this was post-Harbaugh Jed, then I would agree with you, Bill. But this isn't post-Harbaugh Jed. Jed's learned a lot in his time as the owner.
I'm not ready to put I want to wait, right? Because I think I think Lou is right. We just need to be a little bit sensible. We need to see what Kyle Shanahan does with Trey. If Kyle Shanahan is not able to develop Trey from this year and next year, if Trey doesn't take a jump next year in his second season with the 49ers, then you put Shanahan on the hot seat. And if he doesn't get it done, then you bring in a new regime, and that's when you execute it. But you would like to see what could happen with a big-time quarterback. They took a chance bringing him in here.
Jim drunk.
That's a bad one.
That's a pretty bad one.
T.O. was not happy. I was not happy at all. I wanted Jake the Snake.
You did.
I wanted Jake the Snake Plummer in a big way.
Big fan of Jake.
He could have ran the offense. Getting infatuated with the big arm of Jim Druckenmiller was just a bad idea. At least I didn't take him like number 1 overall or something.
Look, it's just one of those things with talent. And Rich, you said a little bit earlier, you guys are confident in the upside of our 3 picks from this year. Projects, right? Yeah. I mean, look, the upside's there for all of them. It's just a matter of, will they get there? I mean, that's the question with every guy you draft, every guy you bring in, and you're hoping to see that development and the process get there. Things happen. You make moves, you bring pieces in, you're making decisions based on what you think things could be with the person in place in your system. And sometimes things work out. The nice thing for the 49ers is when they've brought guys in, for the most part, those pieces have worked out when they've been on the field. The unfortunate thing has been the injuries. Them being able to stay on.
Later,
the field.
Lou. Thanks for coming by.
Later, Lou. Later. And Kevin, you're not wrong. We did miss Tartan Ward today.
100%.
Absolutely. Glad you wore your bulletproof vest. We've been getting them ready. But this is just an unfortunate situation. And, I know the fan base is frustrated. I know sometimes people come in here and they want us to be frustrated also, right? And just lay it all out there and just start ripping into people. But at the end of the day, it's hard. It's hard for both of us as coaches. From a coach's perspective, watching what this team's doing and watching what happened today specifically, watching what just happened and being like, oh man, I hate this team. It's just like, it's just frustrating. It's execution, right? It's mistakes. It's shooting yourselves in the foot. It's, bad calls at the right time. It's Josh Norman doing things to put the team in a worse situation, because those actions of his didn't just, extend a potential drive for the Arizona Cardinals. It got Josh Norman off the field, and the guy behind Josh Norman isn't as good as Josh Norman.
Well, I mean,
so now you're doing things to put the team in an even worse position.
Alex, like I said earlier, it's a scheme issue with this one.
Well, no, yes,
because it wouldn't have mattered if it was Norman or if it was Drake or Patrick.
We weren't going to get them.
They're telling them to play off, and they were having Aziz Al-Shaair cover James Connors and Zach Ertz. It could be because they're missing their safeties. They didn't want Talanoa Hufanga in those situations. They didn't want Tavon Wilson in those situations. So they're having to make up for it. So he's overcorrecting, and it's hurting them in a big way. But anytime you see a setup where you have James Conner or Zach Ertz in the slot, Aziz Al-Shaair over him, and then the safety on top is Talanoa Hufanga, that's a mismatch. Every single time. I was sitting there calling it every time. Oh, here it comes right now. Good watch. Here, James Conner. There it is. And, that's just the way it is. And it's unfortunate. But, you got to figure it out. You got to scheme better. But those 2 turnovers were huge. I mean, they were a huge pivotal, movement in this game. George Kittle and Brandon putting the ball on the ground. If they could have made up for those and, got turnovers going the other way, it could have balanced it back, but they didn't. And now they got to take their lumps. They got to take their L. They deserve to lose today. They were not a better football team than Arizona.
No, they didn't deserve a win. Yeah. In no way, shape, or form. Cutback crew, look, the 2 fumbles were killer, Kevin. All of you. We appreciate all of you guys for commenting. Every single one of you here in the comment section. venting it out, being frustrated. We get it. We totally do. And we're not saying any of the frustration isn't warranted, because at this point it 100% is with how the season has started and what has gone on with this football team. We're hoping for the best for us going forward. We're hoping for the best for this team going forward. But at the end of the day, it's not been going San Francisco's way, and they're getting close to being in a position now where you're going to have to start moving forward with these young guys and everyone getting their wishes. Everyone who's been wanting to see the young guys play. We're getting close to that moment in time now where we're going to start rolling with the young guys, and we're going to start to see some struggles. See some struggles for this team in other areas and other dynamics with this system. We'll see what happens. But season's not completely over yet. You're still a game out of a playoff spot for that last wild card. But it is getting difficult, and it doesn't get any easier next week against the Los Angeles Rams.
It's getting really close to dire, Alex.
What? No way.
This was a bad loss. It was literally one of those games that was pivotal to where if you win, you're like in the mix. You're in the middle of everything.
And you're not like on the outside looking in. You're in the thick of it.
You're right in the thick of it. And if you lose, you're in a bad situation.
You are on the outside
looking in. Now they're in the bad situation.
Yeah, they're not in a great situation.
They need to win this game. They didn't do it. I think they got to look themselves in the mirror and be like, hey, we didn't do it. And they got to look in the mirror and say, hey, if we want anything to come out of the season, we better do it now. There's no tomorrow. It's
over now. There are no more second chances. There's no more. We always got next week. From here on out, the rest of the season, it's this week or not at all.
Yeah,
that's the way it is.
There you go.
It's this week or not at all. So either get it done next week, boys, or we'll see a lot of you rookies going forward. Trey Lance time will be here. But look, it's been a lot of fun. You guys go enjoy the rest of your night, or try to. We're going to get this recap show going. We'll see you tomorrow morning for Face Off at 9 a.m. The recap show after that. Big yikes on Monday as well. The Madden League is just getting started. We'll have some highlights from that coming up this week as well. We'll see you over on Patreon for any of you that are over there. Until the next time, Cutback crew, faithful, 49ers fans, everybody, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.